Welcome to another episode of Clarity Digital Pod. My name is Al Safadi, and in this session, I sat down with Tom Casano, a seasoned B2B marketer and founder of Tamarind, a certified LinkedIn ads agency. With over $50 million in managed LinkedIn ad spend and 12 plus years of marketing experience, Tom brings deep insights into the evolving world of B2B digital advertising. From demystifying demand generation to dissecting the power of retargeting and AI in LinkedIn campaigns, this episode covers everything B2B marketers need to know to stay competitive in 2025. Let's get into it.
All right. Hi, Tom. How's it going today?
Good, Al. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And it's happy Friday. It's good to have you on. If you don't mind introducing yourself for our audience, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Tom Casano. I'm a LinkedIn ad strategist. I've been doing B2B marketing for over 12 years. I'm the founder of Tamarind, which is a certified LinkedIn ads agency. And we've managed over $50 million in LinkedIn ad spend, run thousands of campaigns.
Wow. $50 million. That's good for you. Let me ask you a question. You said certified. Like, how do you get certified in LinkedIn ads? Is it through LinkedIn or third party?
Yeah, LinkedIn has their own certifications. So there's four of them. We've gotten all four. And I guess similar to Google Ads and Meta and other platforms as well, right?
Yeah. Cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So learn something new. All right. You and I had when we were prepping for this call, we were talking about demand generation versus branding. What is the branding? What are the key differences? If you can define each one and identify the key differences, that would be great.
Yeah, a lot of clients, sometimes when they're coming to us in the beginning, they're thinking, oh, we want to get our brand out there. We want brand awareness or brand recognition with our LinkedIn ads. And so I think what they don't realize, if we were to define it, brand awareness is that people will recognize your brand. They've heard of you, they're familiar with the name, the logo, they just know of you. But the
Mhm.
problem with brand awareness in and of itself is it's not going to drive people to take action. You could spend $100,000 on brand awareness with LinkedIn ads and drive exactly zero pipeline. Because if the goal is to get people to hear about you or know about you, it's not driving action. And I think people don't realize that when they're talking about brand awareness. I think what they're meaning is they want the growth, they want the leads, they want the business, but they might not be thinking about it exactly the right way. Now, if we compare that to demand generation, it's like a layer down deeper where they're not only knowing of you and about you, but we're driving interest and desire for your products or services, right? And this is what businesses ultimately want. They want people to want what they have, whether it's SaaS or services that are being provided. With demand generation, we're driving people towards action. We're building that interest. And a lot of it we could talk further into it is classic like marketing 101, right? Pain points, benefits, what does the product do? How does it help solve my problem? That sort of stuff. And there's a lot of other nuances there we can talk about. But that's the
Mhm.
main difference between brand awareness and demand generation.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I used to refer to the whole thing as brand campaigns until I got more savvy about B2B marketing about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. And I understood what the difference was, that demand, as you said, is a layer, has an additional layer of engagement and getting people to engage with your brand rather than just knowing about it. So would you say LinkedIn is a good platform? You being a LinkedIn ads expert, LinkedIn is a good platform for both, for brand and demand generation? Or do you think they should do the brand generation somewhere else and LinkedIn should be really more for demand generation?
Yeah, you could do both. LinkedIn is amazing in its targeting. And that's the main value proposition, especially for B2B businesses. If you have an exact target ICP you want to get
Mm,
in front of, right? Maybe it's the CTO of companies in a certain industry and of a certain size and certain other attributes in certain countries. There's all of these targeting attributes that you can use to get the individual you want. There's firmographic targeting. So you can get in exactly right in front of who you want to be in front of your ideal customer profile, and then from there, you can really deploy any strategy you want to from a marketing perspective. You could do, like we mentioned, brand awareness, we mentioned demand generation. There's a full funnel marketing strategy, there's thought leadership, there's lead generation. I don't think we've talked about that either. So there's a whole bunch of approaches you can use when you want to get in front of those people. It just depends on how you want to go about it. But for any B2B business that is selling a service or a product that's a pretty good fee, like a good customer lifetime value, right? You're not going to, LinkedIn is obviously much more expensive than Meta and its businesses, right? So it's going to be more expensive if you're trying to reach the C suite of some huge companies. But again, the value and the opportunity there is enormous.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because that was going to be my next question. LinkedIn is going to be more expensive, so I think you have to identify your, especially for startups and smaller companies, your branding versus demand generation campaign. And let me ask you another question. What's the difference between demand generation and lead generation in a B2B space?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I've been thinking about this a lot more lately because a lot of clients come to us saying, hey, we want leads. Let's generate leads. And things have changed a lot in the last several years. And so in the past, you could generate leads, download this ebook and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. You can still do that on LinkedIn and it still works. And to be honest, that can also work to grow your sales pipeline and revenue. We have a client that just closed $1 million deal from someone downloading a lead magnet on LinkedIn, right?
Wow.
And so it's a great way to start getting people in the door. The problem and the contrast I think people with an older mindset don't see is just getting someone's name and email address. They might just be wanting content. They
Yeah.
might not even know about your company and care anything about what you're offering. They might just not be aware or just not want whatever
Mhm.
your service or product is. So there's a disconnect there because when someone is downloading content and you're generating a lead at an MQL level,
Yeah.
they just want the information and they don't know or care really about what you're doing, what you're offering. With demand generation, there's a lot of that education, awareness, and understanding of I have this problem, right? If I'm seeing these ads or if I'm seeing this marketing campaign, I have this problem. You understand my problem, and oh, you have this new interesting solution or way I might think about it, or you have this new point of view on it, or what you do could help me solve my problem. When you have demand generation like that going, and then you're generating a lead that's more high intent or more interested, almost like at an SQL level,
Yes.
then that person's more interested. They're going to be more responsive if you're trying to set up a demo or have a meeting or your salesperson's reaching out, as opposed to, oh, I just wanted this ebook and then I don't care anything about your company.
Yeah, this is really good insights. I can relate to this. We do work with a client, it's a valuable client, but they're very sales driven and they're always focusing leads. And I've been trying to push demand generation for a long time. And the best I've been able to do with them is just weekly blog posts I can be and then that I can share on LinkedIn. Nothing beyond that, mainly because they believe that they know the target ICP, they know exactly the accounts they want, and they are having their salespeople cold calling them. And I'm like, all right, if imagine when your salesperson calls someone who's seen your content, who's downloaded your stuff, who's familiar with your brand, what do you think the conversion is going to be when you're reaching out? And I think identifying warming your ICP through demand generation, addressing their pain points, like you said, it's very valuable. And I've seen addressing pain points at the right time could be very valuable. A couple years ago, remember when Google Analytics was going from Universal to GA4 and everybody was in a tight deadline. And of course, we marketers like to put everything to the last minute. I started on LinkedIn and on my blog, being Google Analytics being one of our core expertise, my personal expertise, analytics certified. I started talking about Google Universal to GA4, started putting tips all over my blog and on LinkedIn. And just because I was addressing people's concern and pain points, I was just getting these natural leads coming in, like people asking me, "Can you help me?" I was like, we had a really good, year that year in terms of business for my agency because we were getting all these one-time projects, helping them to migrate from Universal to GA4, do an audit, make sure everything went correctly if they did it in-house. And some of those accounts ended up being wanting to paid media and SEO and other things that we offer. So addressing clients' pain points is a very powerful thing that the B2B marketers should be really focusing about. So that's going to come up with a follow-up question. How do you identify the pain points?
Yeah, what you said is so good. I've got so many different things I'm thinking about we could talk about
Yeah.
because exactly what you mentioned is what was most relevant as a
Yes.
pain point, right? So people, it was top of mind. It was a problem for them. They were maybe stressed or panicked about how to do this, and they're seeing your stuff, and it's like also timely for that
Yes.
moment. And yeah, it's really interesting because the data we get back from LinkedIn when we're showing ads, similar to Meta and other platforms, is we can see click-through rates, and it's really interesting to see the diversity of click-through rates based on what the message is, what the creative is, also the audience we're targeting. So there's actually a lot of variables and moving parts. And it makes it sometimes hard to predict what we expect to get out of it because if you have a click-through rate that's over 1%, that's really good. If
Okay.
you have a click-through rate that's under 0.5%, that's not really that good. And so
Mhm.
when you have different messaging, different pain points, and even different ways of talking about the same exact pain point, a service or a product might have 3 or 4 different pain points, and
Mhm.
we might talk about those in a few different ways. So then when you look at the click-through rates, right, that's giving us a level of engagement that people are having with each one, and we'll see, oh, this one is 3 times higher than that one. Okay, clearly that pain point is resonating more. And that resonance is so important because a lot of the performance of even organic content is based on the market message fit and how well it resonates with where people are, what their problems are, and what they're interested in, what they're looking for, as well as what will grab their attention. There's
Sure.
also another metric in LinkedIn called dwell time,
Mhm.
which is also another helpful way. And it's a relatively newer metric, but there's a lot of lurkers out there. The 99% of people not clicking on those ads, we still get the data to see, oh, are they hanging out on this ad? Or even, I guess, for posts, yeah, I guess it's not an organic post, but it's the same idea because an ad looks like a post. Are they hanging
Yeah.
out for 8 seconds, or are they like 1.5 seconds and then they just keep scrolling? And so that's another challenge, right? Is people's attention spans are
Attention
so
span.
small. Yeah.
Good points. I have a question for you. I had a when I share stuff on LinkedIn, sometimes I ask my staff, "Hey, engage with it if you can." So you can. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not.
Yeah.
But then that ends up skewing the numbers. And then when you're doing the data analysis, a lot of those engagements are my own staff or my own colleagues and friends. How do you do that qualitative analysis when you have that practice in place, when you're looking at engagements and stuff like that?
Yeah, with organic posts, that's a good idea because you want to tell the algorithm, like, oh, more people are
Mhm.
engaging. This is important. And that helps increase the visibility and tell the
Mhm.
algorithm that this is good content people are reacting to and commenting on.
Yeah.
With paid ads, it's a little bit more like you're paying for it. If no one
Yeah.
reacts to the ad or if everyone reacts, that will actually help. LinkedIn has complexity under the hood, and I actually don't spend a ton of time trying to break down all the technical aspects of what's working or how LinkedIn's paid advertising algorithm is working because it just goes very deep and it,
Yeah.
it actually takes me further away from the strategy of what will actually drive performance. Click through rates are important because with LinkedIn, you could be paying per click or you can be paying per impression, or there's other ways to bid and pay as well. And
Yeah.
so if you have a very low click through rate, then LinkedIn's going to want to have you spend more to show that ad because
Mhm.
for LinkedIn to make its money on clicks, it will have to show the ad more times, which
Yeah.
means it can't show someone else's ad. So there's a lot happening in terms of how well your ad is resonating with the audience and what it will cost you to show that ad to people. It's another factor in terms of what it costs to get these ads seen by people. But the beautiful thing when I think about organic versus paid on LinkedIn is with organic, the reach and visibility is very limited. It's what happened to Facebook some years back. I don't know if it's like 8 or 10 years ago. They really killed the amount of reach on company pages. And so
Mhm.
I'll see companies that on their LinkedIn company page, they might have put a post up that got 200 impressions. And those 200 impressions from their company page might have gotten their old friend from college saw it and their like cousins. That's not even
Yeah.
their ICP, right?
Mhm.
Whereas when you compare that with ads, you can target your exact ICP. So those are exactly the people you want to see your content. And you can get 10,000 or 50,000 impressions to that content. So there's a lot of similarities and overlap between organic and paid, but there's also some distinct differences in what you can do and how it will perform best.
Sure. Yeah. And obviously LinkedIn here to make money, so they're gonna make sure that ads takes a precedent over organic. Cool. Let me ask you a couple of LinkedIn like specific platform LinkedIn platform specific questions. You posted something, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, about generating lead by not sending people to another website. And I've heard mixed results from different social media experts. Some say sending them to your own website, yes, it's going to drop it's going to drop your conversion rate. You're going to get less leads, but you're going to get better leads, better quality leads. And I haven't seen that, to be honest with you. We do a little bit of LinkedIn advertising here and there, Facebook advertising mostly. And I think when people are on a social media platform, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, and often they're on their mobile, they don't like to leave the platform, right? So when you're sending the lead to a landing page on your website, it's not there's a friction there, right? So what are your takes on that, on both quantity of leads and quality of leads, and which one's better for B2B businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question, Al. We see this a lot where people that in-house marketing teams that are following marketing best practices that work well on other platforms and stuff like that, they'll be setting up a campaign where you see the ad on LinkedIn, and then the objective within the LinkedIn campaign is a website visit or a website conversion. So someone clicks on the ad, and now the next thing that happens, especially if you think about it on mobile, it's even worse than on desktop, right?
Hmm.
I'm on my
Yeah,
phone,
totally.
I see this ad is interesting, I click on it. Now I'm like waiting for this web page to load.
Especially if you're not on a Wi-Fi, your data, that's going to take
Yeah,
even
that's
longer.
yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the New York City subway or something. You're just like,
Yeah.
all right, like when's it? Anyway, you get to the page loaded. Now you're scrolling down and you're trying to navigate this page. You don't really know where things are. And if you're actually interested, you find the contact form, and now you have your two thumbs, and you're trying to put in your email address, and it wants this other field of information, and then you finally submit it. You compare that little journey to the other way you can do it on LinkedIn ads nowadays. It's just called the lead gen form. And it's similar to Facebook's form as well, right? So someone sees the ad on LinkedIn, they click on or tap on the ad, it pops up a little, it's called a lead gen form, right? A little window right there in LinkedIn. So they didn't wait for a web page to load, they didn't go anywhere. And it pre-populates all of their contact information. So it
Yeah.
says my first name, my last name, my email address, whatever. And then you just click one more button. And
Yeah.
so when you think of marketers know about
And
friction
they
and
stay there right there on LinkedIn. They don't have to leave.
exactly. No
Yeah.
web page is loading. I'm not typing in any
Hmm.
information with my two thumbs or if I'm on desk, like nothing. And so marketers know that friction is just the enemy of conversions. And so with LinkedIn's lead gen forms, it's so low friction, the conversion rates are that much higher. Now, when you start doing the math and saying, okay, I'll give you an example. Like for if you're sending someone off to a landing page, let's just pretend that conversion rate is 5%, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you use the lead gen form, let's say that conversion rate is 20%. There's a 4x difference in that conversion rate, which means all of those clicks you're paying for and the ultimate cost per lead that you're getting. If it was $800 from the landing page, it's now $200 with the lead gen form. So you're
Yeah.
saving so much money in terms of just making those conversions low friction and a high conversion. Some people have another viewpoint, which is look, it might be too low friction. It might be too easy for people to just click that button, submit the form. Then you have leads coming in, they're not serious. And maybe if you want the best leads, maybe you have to send them to a landing page and have them do that. I still think that high quality, like high intent leads will still do the lead gen form,
Yeah.
but you can be getting obviously people that are less serious or people that are right. And there are ways to combat that, right? So you can require it has to be a work email address. Also, these are the people you're choosing to target, so they should
Yes.
be your ICP anyway. And
Yeah.
then you can also, if you want to add friction, you can also add like caveats or things in the messaging, right? Only fill out this form if XYZ. So you could try to like turn people off or turn people away. But yeah, we've just seen once you remove that friction and you can increase conversion rates, the cost per lead goes down, then the ROI goes up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, I tend to agree with you because you want to reduce friction. I believe the nurturing needs to happen after you capture the lead. Not everything is a MQL, so that's just a raw lead. You still need to nurture. And like you said, your target LinkedIn is powerful at targeting. So you're targeting your ICP, and you're collecting their information. That doesn't mean that your sales guy needs to grab the phone and start calling them or sending them an email. There may be additional steps that needs to be taken in order to further nurture those leads. And that's something that we've been helping with a client of ours through the HubSpot the lead scoring. And I think like you gotta not limit yourself too much on the top of the funnel. You want to come do that stuff later on. Another thing I've noticed is that the quality of your, let's say if you're trying to generate leads through a gated content, the focus more on your creatives and your quality of your gated content. What are your takes on that?
Focus more on your creative.
And the
Yeah.
quality of your gated content. Let's say if there's an ebook that
Yeah.
they're downloading, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe that's where you have to do the sales pitch, right? Not so much at the lead level.
Yeah, and just to go back to your previous part, because I was thinking about
Yeah.
the automation and the nurturing, the
Mhm.
follow up, especially through HubSpot or other CRMs, like that part is so important and can't be avoided. So
Sure.
have those workflows going, have the reminders for whatever it is, even send them a connection request on LinkedIn, or
Mhm.
if you do have a phone number, you can call them and have those because, yeah, a lot is lost. I'm sure you've seen it with clients where there's just a pile of leads and no one has reached out to
Yeah.
do anything with them. With the gated content. So what's interesting is the presentation, and this is I think how marketers have gotten a bad rap, right? Like the clickbait thing, but
Yes.
even taken to extreme with the creative, you could promise the world and say it's like the most amazing thing ever, and then when they get the thing it sucks. So you can go too far. So you can have the most amazing piece of content ever, but if you're not presenting it or the messaging and the creative in a way that's going to perform right, then that won't go well. Or you can have amazing stuff and then they get the content and they're like, this is terrible. And you're also losing trust and credibility for your brand too. So in a perfect world, you want amazing content, but also the way you position it in the ad. And I can talk through a couple ways to do that. One way, right? Let's say if it's like a guide or an ebook or a checklist, something that they can download and use as like a PDF, which is a typical format. You want to have that like pretty big in the ad so they can see like the cover, the name of it, what they'll get. And you want to test different messaging in the image itself, right? Because you can put the little text above the image there, or if it's a video, whatever it is, but people are going to just see like the big text. And so you can test different ways of saying what they're going to get out of this, or what are the outcomes, or what are the benefits, or what are the pain points to kind of pull them in there. And also the lead gen form, like we talked about, we want that to be as closely aligned and optimized towards what they just saw. So if they just saw the guide for X, the lead gen form is talking about the guide for X. It's a free download. You're going to get these benefits. Click the button below and download it. And then the other way to do it is with document ads, especially if it's like a well designed asset. And let's say it's at least 15 or 20 pages and the first several pages look good, then you can preview it as a document ad, which is basically, you've also seen them on LinkedIn organic when you're scrolling the newsfeed. Someone has like a PDF in there and you can click the arrow button to go through the pages. So a document ad is the same thing. It could be completely ungated, so you could let them see the whole thing. Or if you want it as a gated content, then you could just let them preview as many pages as you say. Okay, let them preview the first 4 pages. Once they try to see the fifth, then they get this message like, oh, you want the whole thing? Download it. So yeah, and that stuff performs well, especially if someone's looking to generate MQLs at a low cost per lead.
Yeah.
We'll see $50 to $100, sometimes more for MQLs like that.
Yeah, great points. I did have a follow-up question on that. There's always been this discussion amongst marketers from about gated versus ungated content.
Yeah.
And I think now with LLMs providing you pretty much whatever you want, I
Right.
think that the concept of gated concept, I have been let's just tell you this. I've been downloading less and less gated content myself, because I think whatever question I have, I can ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. So Perplexity. What are your takes on that? Are gated content still valuable, and what type of gated content you should be focusing about, especially on LinkedIn? Especially on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's a great point, Al. It's one of those things that reminds me of like banner ads back in the day and
Mhm.
email marketing even today. And it's not that those things don't work, it's just that they don't work as well as they used to. And so it's the same thing with gated content. It'll still work to get leads, getting the response from someone who downloaded the lead magnet and getting them into a demo or sales call. That conversion rate is not so good. And
Yeah,
yeah, and you're paying money. And the amount of people, it's funny also because you and me are probably similar, that we're not going to sit there and download lead magnets because we're like, this is a lead magnet. Unless, of course, it's something very unique or extremely valuable you can't find anywhere else. If it's like data or insights or things you're not going to find in ChatGPT or in Google, that
yeah,
can perform well. But that funnel of they become an MQL, we follow up, then they become an SQL, then they move into the sales pipeline and become a customer. It still can work. It's
yeah,
just getting more expensive and it's hard to make it work, which is why the demand gen approach makes more sense. And I didn't get to it, but I wanted to mention there's a trade off with going the demand gen route as opposed to the lead gen, the
hmm,
pure MQL lead gen route, which is demand gen takes longer. And a
yeah,
lot of it is happening in the mind of the prospects that you can't measure and see for a long period of time. And so what happens is with MQLs and lead magnet downloads, I can show you in the first week, like, hey, we're getting these leads. Here's the cost per lead. We can optimize down the cost per lead. You can see that in the first week or two, in the first month. With demand gen, you have to be in it for the long run. You have to
yeah,
believe in the approach and the strategy. And then obviously, we're following best practices, doing everything we know. And it just takes time to see those outcomes and the full sort of ROI, because we've seen in the past where someone from 2 years ago becomes a deal today. And
yeah,
if most people are not thinking about like the next 2 years of ROI, they're thinking of this quarter or the next 2 quarters.
yeah.
So
Not
it's
in this
hard.
economy, right?
Yeah, it's tough
No,
because
I
it's a
agree with
trade-off with
you.
the attribution. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge, especially when you work with startups and they want leads in business right now. Selling demand gen is very difficult. Like the example I gave you earlier, they're very sales driven. They want the leads right now. And when you're trying to present your numbers to the board, there's an art, there's a lot of evangelism that needs to happen to teach them about the importance of demand gen versus lead gen. And I think you need both. You need to do the demand gen while you do lead gen, just keep people happy. but then most of the companies have finite amount of ad dollars, so you have to choose your battles. And yeah, it's really good points. Appreciate you bringing that up. I did want to ask you a couple more questions before we conclude. I think the first thing I was going to ask you about AI, LinkedIn, and in search and SEO, there's a bunch of AI tools are popping out, and to the point that even for a geek like me, it's getting overwhelming. I don't like. I'm a pretty savvy LLM user. I know how to do custom GPTs. I know how to prompt, but all these tools that are popping out, some of them are very good, some of them are not so good, and they're very. I just wanted to see, have you find any AI tools that help you with your LinkedIn campaign and marketing, or do you just focus on LinkedIn platform?
Yeah, no, I'm in the same place you are, Al, because for however many months we've been seeing more and more AI this, and
Yeah.
there's vibe coding, now there's like vibe marketing, right? And so
Yeah.
like for the last 2 weeks, I've been having almost like anxiety where I feel like
Hmm.
I'm falling behind. And
Yeah.
I'm like seeing this stuff from other marketers using AI, and I'm like, what am I missing out on? So I've been trying to dive deeper into it. And some of it is it's really just like automation. It's like
Hmm.
workflows. And it's really interesting, like with N8N and things like that. I haven't jumped into them yet, but there's obviously a lot of possibility and opportunity there. But a lot of it is, I don't know, it can be like generic blog posts or generic social posts. And I don't know how helpful that really is. What we're doing, the way we're using AI for LinkedIn ads, there's a few ways. So one of them is we're using LinkedIn's predictive audiences. This is within LinkedIn's platform itself. It used to be called lookalike audiences, right? So you
Yeah.
can upload a list of your existing customers, clients, and then we'll find more people like that. Or we can find people. Actually, we didn't touch on retargeting. We could talk about that later another time if you want. But
Sure.
there are ways to find those audiences that are the most engaged and then find more people like them. So that's one way using LinkedIn's own AI, which LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft. So their AI is pretty good at that. The other is coming up with ideas for lead magnets and offers. So, any
Mm.
LLM, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, you can sit there and talk about, especially if you're giving it, like you mentioned, Al, those great prompts and like
Yeah.
understanding how to give it the information it needs.
Yeah.
So if you're giving it, here's the pain points and here's the goals, and it can come up with a lot of great ideas of how you can frame just the title. And we didn't talk about that before, but just the title of the lead magnet has a big impact also on what it costs and how it performs. It sounds like a small thing, but actually ideating free offers, especially if you want people to come in at the bottom of the funnel, then you better be offering something like really amazing and really juicy. And it's not just like a demo, like whoop de doo. No one's excited about a demo. If you're giving away something for free, or you're going to get a free something, a free high value thing, AI is good for that. Also, creating lead magnets itself, like you said, Al, you could just go in ChatGPT and ask it anything. So it can
Yeah.
help with outlining or creating content. And then, of course, there's copywriting. So,
Hmm.
what kind of copy and messaging should go in the ads themselves?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm using LLMs for is sometimes just for ideation on audience targeting.
Yeah.
So, of course, we know we can target by job title, seniority, company industry, company size, like all these different things. Sometimes it comes up with other interesting ideas because LinkedIn has skills you could target by. You can also target by LinkedIn groups and some other things like that. So a lot of it is LLM heavy. And then, of course, I shouldn't neglect image generation ever since
Yes.
that update that ChatGPT has come out with. And then now there's VO3. So we haven't
Hmm.
gotten into VO3 yet, but image generation is also super helpful, right? It saves so much
Sure.
time and creates pretty amazing stuff for creative.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that. I've noticed that creating images, especially in AI, especially with larger companies, is more of a challenge because they have this really strict branding guideline that you have to go along with that. The branding and creative teams haven't quite opened up to the image creation. Yeah, we use Canva and stuff here to edit stuff, but yeah, we've been using AI and ourselves multiple ways. Basically, AI is now our data scientist. We hardly elevate our work. Like when it comes to deep analysis, we use ChatGPT. Obviously, if you know how to prompt it, and we have custom GPTs, and we have actually created an API that hooks up to Google Sheets. So we basically dump the data in Google Drive. And then there's other tools like Julius AI. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's popping out, and I think marketers, there's a sense of fear of missing out, FOMO, and you're tempted to buy all these tools. My recommendations to marketers that just learn how to prompt better, take a couple of prompting classes on Coursera. LinkedIn Learning has a couple of good courses. Also, just learn how to use like this LLMs better, whether it's just prompting or custom GPTs. In Gemini, they call it custom gems. That really helps. Now, I do have a follow-up question about AI tools that LinkedIn offers. I was looking at it the other day. You can create an entire campaign in AI. Do you recommend those?
No, that one to me is it's a treacherous pitfall.
Yeah.
And maybe one day it'll be amazing and work well. And I've tested it and I've tried it, but it's almost like I don't know how to explain it out. It's just kind of comes up with ideas. It's obviously connected to LLMs, or maybe it's I don't know if it's using ChatGPT or what on the back end. So it's like
Hmm.
pulling in stuff like, okay, this is the headline, this is the image, this is the right. But it just misses the mark because you get generic images with generic copy, and then who's going to click on that and want to
Yeah,
engage?
yeah,
It just feels like generic and inauthentic. Whereas if you have a full-fledged strategy and more of the authenticity and resonance for what you offer, what you do, and how it helps people, that just performs so much better. I
yeah,
hope one day it gets better, but right now it's brutal. And I feel bad because I see people lured into that and then they'll
yeah.
spend $1,000 or something. And I'm just like, Don't even bother. You're just wasting money."
Yeah, we have that problem in Google side too, Performance Max campaign that they've created. I believe LinkedIn is using OpenAI's being a co-pilot, being a Microsoft product.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. You want to utilize AI, but you still want to be in control. You don't want to give it the full control. I didn't, at least not yet. Since we're running out of time, maybe if you can briefly talk about retargeting. What are some of the retargeting strategies? I have That's actually a really good topic too, because in search, people come and visit your website, and then you retarget them. How do you retarget people on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn's retargeting capabilities have become very robust, and there's 9 different ways you can retarget people. So when most
Mm-hmm.
people think of retargeting, they think, "Oh, they went to the website and left, and
Mm-hmm.
now they'll see the ad tomorrow." But actually, you can retarget people who clicked on an ad, who watched some of a video, who engaged with a document ad, who went to your company page. There's 9 ways, and it really creates then all these possibilities of how you can build this audience that's been interested or engaging with your company or your brand somehow, especially with the ads that they might have already seen. So if you say, okay, there's been 10,000 impressions to all of these ads, and now of those 10,000, like 1,000 people engaged or seem to be more involved with them. Now you can create that retargeting audience of those 1,000 people, and now you're pushing them like further down the funnel. Right. So instead of seeing something at the top of the funnel, maybe it's more
Nice.
basic about the pain points or the benefits or that sort of stuff. Now they'd be seeing like a case study, a customer story, or maybe you want to bring them into white paper download or something along those lines. And then you can do it that a third time to bring people down to the bottom of the funnel. It gets very sophisticated very quickly.
Is there a limit? Is there a minimum number to retarget? Is it 100,000?
You need at least 300 people for the audience to run.
Okay, to retarget. So let's say if you've had a top of a funnel ad, and when you target 10,000 people, you need to have you can retarget the 10,000, and then the next stage it needs to be at least 300.
Exactly. Yeah. So it takes time and also takes money to build up like those
Yes.
audiences. Yeah. And that takes time. But if you're in it for the long haul, then
Yeah, B2B
want-
it just takes time.
yeah.
The entire
Yeah.
marketing sales cycle in B2B takes time and money.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. We are running out of time. Let's ask you a couple of personal questions if you don't mind, and then we can exit, and maybe we can have you on again for future because there's a lot to talk about. First of all, where can people find you and what type of services do you offer?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Also, our website is tamarind.agency. That's the name of the agency that we specialize in LinkedIn ads. And if you need help with LinkedIn ad strategy or setting up campaigns, like I said, we often see people in house kind of just not knowing the nuances of the platform or trying to put some money into it and not getting the results they want. So happy to help if anyone needs help with LinkedIn ads. Feel free to reach out. We'd love to help.
Cool. All right. Okay, now about the personal questions. When you're not running ads or marketing, what are you doing?
Often managing children,
Oh,
especially
okay.
weekends,
Yeah.
birthday parties and whatnot,
Yeah.
and listening to podcasts, watching YouTube. I've taken a deep dive into like UAPs and aliens and that sort of stuff. So that's
Oh,
been
cool.
really interesting for me.
All right, awesome. And you're in East Coast. You're in New York, right? You're a New Yorker.
Yeah.
How's New York these days? Is it cold? Is it hot? It's in summertime, so is it really hot right now?
Yeah. I'm getting hot right now. Yeah. I'm in Brooklyn in New York
Brooklyn.
City. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, the weather is finally warming up here.
Cool. Awesome. I guess the last question would be if you could be a superhero from a comic movie or comic book or movie, which superhero would you be?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about Superman. He's got such a good
Yeah.
physique with a
Yeah.
tight
Yeah.
blue spandex on, and
Yeah.
reminds me I need to get back to the gym. It's been like 10 years.
Yeah. Don't remind me of that. Cool. All right. I know we're both busy. We got to go. It was a pleasure having you on. We should have you again in coming months so we can get into some of those more tactical part of LinkedIn. Appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Al.
Of course. Take care. Bye.